Welcome again to another edition of the Big Seven Stories on Wells Television. I am Bolanle Udueku Ayola. Every week on the Big Seven, we count down the 7 stories that everyone is talking about. From the news that shakes our nations to the events that are shaping the world. Just know that if it made the headlines, that means it's right here on the Big Seven Stories. But before we get into the Big Seven Stories for today, I noticed that many of us who are watching Big Seven Stories are yet to subscribe to Wells Television. Please, please, and please subscribe. It's just right under. You can see the subscribe button. Just click on it and then you click the bell. Also, let's leave our comments in the comment segment. You see their comments. Just drop your comments, what you feel about the stories, and I will definitely respond to you. We're here to talk about this issue, so don't be shy to leave your comments. That said, let's get into the Big Seven. Our very first story is about Nigeria's new Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa. He has assured Nigerians that they will begin to experience improved security across the country in the coming weeks. He made this pledge shortly after taking the oath of office in Abuja, where he outlined his immediate priorities for the ministry. He said the government is aware of the level of fear and uncertainty that many citizens are facing, especially in communities that are affected by kidnapping, banditry, and insurgents attacks. And he promised that addressing these threats will be his #1 priority. He also said that the ministry intends to move quickly to close the gaps that have slowed down previous operations. He explained that rebuilding cooperation among the various security agencies is central to achieving better results. He said ineffective coordination, delayed intelligence sharing, and overlapping responsibilities have made it difficult up till now to respond rapidly to threats facing the country. He said that his ministry will now work to strengthen joint operations and create a more unified command approach. He also emphasized the importance of improving troop morale. He noted that the welfare of military personnel directly affects the success of security operations. He said that, he also talked about welfare of the soldiers. He said frontline soldiers must be supported, they must feel supported, and they must be equipped to perform their duties, especially in volatile regions. He said that security must be improved, not just in the major cities, but even beyond the major cities, like the rural communities, farmland, schools, transport corridors, where many of these recent attacks have taken place. If you've noticed that many of these attacks have taken place not in the state capital, but in remote areas of states. And so he has said that Nigerians deserve to live their daily lives without fear. And he has promised all of this. He said his ministry will do whatever it takes to restore confidence and protect the lives of Nigerians. You remember that President Bola Tinubu recently nominated him as the Minister for Defense, and the Senate also, after an explosive after an explosive time of questions and answers that turned a bit comic and then went back to being serious, also confirmed that appointment, and he's taking the oath of office. Now, he is taking over from Mohammed Badaru Abubakar, who until recently served as Nigeria's Minister of Defense, but resigned from position on the 1st of December. In his resignation letter addressed to the president, he cited health concerns as the reason for stepping down. Some people have said it's not health concerns, but according to his letter, he says he's resigning based on health concerns. And, many people have also, despite the fact that people have said that his resignation was due to disagreements over external military cooperation or pressure from security crisis, he has publicly denied such claims. In a statement, he even described those reports as malicious, false, and baseless. He said his decision was strictly based on health grounds. We look forward to the time and tenure of the new Minister of Defense, and we hope that the things that he probably was unable to do in his former position, he will be able to do now and ensure that Nigeria is a safer place for all. Moving on to our second story on the Big Seven for this week. Leaders from the 19 northern states in Nigeria, through the Northern Governors Forum, that's the NGF, together with the Northern Traditional Rulers Council, have called for a 6-month suspension on all mining activities across the region. They said the illegal mining networks have become a major driver of recent surge in abductions, bandit attacks, and general insecurity across many northern states. They said this at the joint meeting they had in Kaduna, and they issued a communique to this effect at the end of their meeting. Additionally, they also announced the establishment of a regional security trust fund worth 228 billion naira annually. So apparently all those governors are going to be contributing a certain amount, and they're going to have 228 billion naira annually. Now, under this scheme, each state and local governments will contribute 1 billion naira per month, which is automatically deducted at source to finance joint security operations, intelligence-driven interventions, and coordinated responses to violent crime across the north. This is, of course, coming against the backdrop of the rising insecurity in recent weeks. We have witnessed multiple school raids, mass kidnappings, attacks on communities in several states, and many people are pointing, to the fact that the attackers are coming from the north. And according to the governors, the frequency and scale of these incidents have left many areas deserted. Don't forget that, even before we started hearing about it in the southwest here, insurgency has been on in the north for a while. They also talked about the fact that it's affecting schools because some schools have been forced to close in affected states. In addition to suspending mining, the governors and traditional rulers also renewed their long-standing support for the creation of state police. They say that this is essential given the urgency and complexity of the current security challenges that we have in Nigeria. And so they urged the federal government, specifically the Federal Minister of Solid Minerals, to order an immediate halt to all mining exploration and conduct a full audit and revalidation of mining licenses, especially those ones linked to artisanal or illicit operations. They also extended their condolences to states recently hit by attacks. They said they will support all efforts, including military operations, that are aimed at dismantling these criminal networks, dismantling these insurgent enclaves, and restoring security. This is a very good one because it's not the first time they're meeting, but at least this shows that the northern governors are also making strides to ensure that this thing that started from the north is eventually crushed. Moving on to our third story on the Big 7 stories for today. Nigeria marked this year's World Disability Week this week with a major empowerment push as the First Lady, Tinubu, launched a 1.9 billion naira support scheme for persons with disabilities, PWDs, across the country under the Renewed Hope Initiative, that's the RHI. Now, this program provides 200,000 naira each to 9,500 beneficiaries to help them start or expand small businesses. It was launched in Abuja, where 250 physically challenged military and police veterans received their grants as the first batch. The First Lady described the initiative as part of efforts to promote inclusion, economic independence, and dignity for Nigerians living with disabilities. She said the administration is committed to ensuring that no group is left behind, especially those who face structural barriers to education, employment, and social participation. The Ministry of Information now also highlighted similar activities that were held in Nasarawa and Ogun states during the week-long commemoration, where additional PWD groups received support, mobility aids, and vocational tools. It's a good one. So much more than throwing money at the problem, we do wish that the federal government can also look at implementing the already made policies. We have these policies already. So implementing these policies to ensure that persons with disabilities can live an easier life in Nigeria. Let's move on to our next story on the Big 7 stories for today. The Central Bank of Nigeria this week announced a major revision of its cash handling policy. So effective January 1st, 2026, the cumulative cash deposit limit for both individuals and corporate customers is abolished, and the fee that was previously charged on excess deposits is removed. So now, under these new rules, weekly cash withdrawals across all channels for individuals will now be capped at 500,000 naira, up from 100,000 naira, which it was before. And for corporate accounts, it's capped at 5 million naira per week. ATM withdrawals, that's the automated teller machine withdrawals, still remain limited at 100,000 naira per customer per day. But weekly ATM withdrawals now count towards the new 500,000 naira weekly limit. The point of sales as POS, over-the-counter cash withdrawals, third-party check encashments will also be included under this 500,000 naira weekly cap. So for withdrawals above the new limits, customers will pay a penalty, 3% on the excess amount for individuals and 5% for corporates. And this penalty revenue will then be shared between the CBN and the bank involved. So the CBN will take 40% and the bank will take 60%. Now, the special monthly withdrawal authorizations, which once allowed individuals to withdraw up to 5 million naira and corporates up to 10 million naira monthly, have also been abolished. You say, what exactly does this mean for everyday people and their businesses? It's going to become easier to deposit cash because there's no more deposit limit. You can now deposit any amount of cash into your bank account without worrying about a limit or paying fees. And this is very good for people who, receive large payments, people who get salaries, business proceeds, remittances, sales revenue. It ensures that you don't have to split your deposits over multiple days, over the fear of penalty charges. Also, you're going to have larger weekly withdrawals, more flexibility for your daily needs. If you're running a small business, you're going to be able to withdraw up to 500,000 naira per week. It gives you more freedom, instead of the former 100,000 naira weekly cap that we had. So people will now have greater access to cash when needed. But there's still some limits, especially with ATM, POS, and check cashing. Now, the weekly withdrawal cap is higher than the 100,000 it was at before. It's now 500,000 naira. But daily ATM withdrawals still remain at 100,000 naira. Over-the-counter or POS withdrawals still count towards this weekly cap. So, if you rely heavily on ATMs or POS, you have to plan carefully because you might hit the weekly limit sooner than expected. Let's move on to our next story on the Big 7 Stories for today. President Bola Tinubu this week forwarded a fresh list of 32 ambassadorial nominees to the Senate for confirmation, expanding Nigeria's diplomatic corps, and this list features a mix of veteran public servants, former political office holders, and some controversial figures. Let's take a look at the full list of these 32 ambassadorial nominees. So we have 17 non-career ambassador nominees, and they include Barrister Ogbonnaya Kalu from Abia State. He's a former presidential aide. Reno Mokri, who is from Delta State, a former presidential aide to a past administration, and is known publicly as a media persona and commentator. We'll also have Professor Mahmood Yakubu, the former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, just the past one who brought this administration into power. We'll also have Irelu Angela Adebayo, former First Lady of Ekiti State. We have Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, former governor of Enugu State. We have Tasio Musa Migari, former Speaker, Katsina State House of Assembly. We have Yakubu N. Gambo, former Plateau State Commissioner and ex-Deputy Executive Secretary of UBEC. We'll also have Professor Nora Ladi Dadut, a former Senator from Plateau State. Otumba Femi Pedro, former Deputy Governor of Lagos. Chief Femi Fani-Kayode, a former Aviation Minister from Osun State. We have Barrister Nkechi Linda Ufochukwu from Anambra State, Fatima Florence Ajimobi, former First Lady of Oyo State. We have Lola Konde, former Lagos State Commissioner, Grace Bent, former Senator from Adamawa State. We have Dr. Victor Keze Gbazo, former Governor of Abia State, Senator Jimo Ibrahim, former Senator and businessman from Ondo State. We have Ambassador Paul Oga Adiku, former envoy to the Holy See, from Benue State. Now, those are the 17 non-career ambassadors. And for this 15 career ambassadors, or you can call them high commission nominees, many of them are civil servants or people who are not really known, and so we won't be mentioning their names, but I'll say that they're spread across different states: Abia State, Taraba State, Adamawa, Kebbi State, Bayelsa State, Ebonyi State, Ogun State, Ondo State, Edo State, Niger State, Katsina State, Borno, Kaduna, Kwara, Osun. They're drawn from across Nigeria. But this list has drawn sharp criticism from the opposition, particularly the PDP. They described the nominations as reprehensible and scandalous. They allege that several nominees have integrity concerns and carry records of past anti-democratic conduct. They also particularly singled out the nomination of the former INEC chair, Mahmood Yakubu, claiming that appointing a former electoral commissioner chairman to an ambassadorial role at this stage raises questions about impartiality and the possibility of political patronage. It's not just the PDP, many have spoken. The presidency, however, has not responded publicly to these criticisms. But what you need to know now is that this list is before the Senate. The Senate is expected to conduct confirmation hearings. They will review the professional backgrounds, diplomatic experience, and integrity of each nominee before deciding whether to approve the appointment or not. So we just keep on, looking and see what the Senate will also have to say to this. Now, moving to our sixth story on the Big Seven stories for today. The government of the United States Department of State has announced new visa restrictions targeting Nigerians who, have been accused of participating in mass killings and violence against Christians. That's a Christian genocide that the U.S. president spoke about. This was said in a statement by Marco Rubio. He said the U.S. will deny or revoke visas for individuals and potentially their immediate family members who are found to have directed, authorized, funded, supported, or carried out serious violations of religious freedom in Nigeria. And this policy has been applied under Section 212, subsection A3C of the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act, which apparently allows visa restrictions for perpetrators of egregious human rights abuses. This one particularly names radical Islamist extremists, militant militias, including certain Fulani ethnic groups, and other violent actors responsible for recent anti-Christian attacks as targets of this visa ban. Don't forget that this is obviously coming after the U.S. redesignated Nigeria as a country of particular concern over religious freedom violations. They're saying that this measure is part of decisive actions in response to continuing reports of mass killings, kidnappings, and violent attacks against Christian communities across Nigeria. And basically, what does this mean? For individuals who are accused or suspected, it basically means that they're going to find themselves barred from obtaining the U.S. visas or even entry into the U.S., potentially cutting off their access to travel, study, business, or residency in the U.S. Their immediate families as well may be affected. Also, the visa ban is adding a new dimension to pressure on militia groups and their sponsors because the risk of travel restrictions may deter some perpetrators and their sponsors, or it may also reduce foreign support for violence. Also, on the other side, the U.S. Designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern is, going to put a lot of eyes, international concern on Nigeria over religious violence. And unfortunately, it may encourage some countries or organizations to consider similar sanctions or diplomatic pressure on Nigeria. Moving on to our next story, on the Big Seven stories for today, it takes us to sports, where the 2026 World Cup final draw has been completed, confirming 12 groups under the expanded 48-team format that will be co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico. We have all of them in different groups. I'll read it out now. In Group A, we have Mexico, South Korea, South Africa, and a UEFA Playoff D winner. In Group B, we have Canada, Switzerland, Qatar, and a playoff winner. We have in Group C, Brazil, Morocco, Scotland, and Haiti. In Group D, United States, Paraguay, Australia, and a playoff winner. In Group E, we have Germany, Ecuador, Ivory Coast, and Krakow. In Group F, we have Netherlands, Japan, Tunisia, and a playoff winner. In Group G, we have Belgium, Iran, Egypt, New Zealand. In Group H, we have Spain, Uruguay, Saudi Arabia, Cape Verde. In Group I, we have France, Senegal, Norway, and a playoff winner. In Group J, we have Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. In Group K, we have Portugal, Colombia, Uzbekistan, and a playoff winner. And in Group L, we have England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. Meanwhile, in African football, FIFA has confirmed that clubs must release players selected for the 2025 AFCON to their national teams by December 15th of 2025. This is 1 week later than was originally planned. That's it. That's how the week looked. 7 big stories, 1 clear picture. Thank you so much for watching the Big 7 stories on Wells Television. I am Bolandi Udueku Ayola. Remember, the news doesn't end when the bulletin does. So stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you next week with another Big 7. Bye-bye.